If you've been taught the wrist set is a vertical motion that looks like this, then it could be killing your golf swing. Here's the solution. The real key is to set the club back with the trail wrist. This helps you control the club face, giving you far more power and consistency. Think of it like baking a cake. 1/3 is setting the club up with the lead wrist, but 2/3 is setting the club back with the trail wrist. That means the dominant motion is your right wrist. So if I put those two motions together, wrist set now does not look like this. Instead, it looks like this. And if I do that, I can now control the club face, swing back on plane, shallow the club, and deliver shaft lean. Now, if I bring you in nice and close, I want you to focus on my hands, and we're gonna look at the difference between setup versus impact. So if I start in this position, we can see a little bit of angle in that left wrist right there, and I'm talking about down the back of the forearm, all the way to the back of the wrist right there, kind of where the logo on my glove would be. And exactly the same for my right wrist, we can see just neutral positions right here, a little bit of angle. Now, if I then go to an impact position, you can see how my lead wrist has flattened and my trail wrist has gained impact. So essentially the difference between setup and impact is I start here and impact essentially is there with a little bit of shift and rotation. Hence why we move our wrists more in this manner. If we set our wrists more like this, suddenly now if I'm starting in this position and I set my wrists up, how am I supposed to get back to an impact position? Well, I would have to dump it down, well, that then just brings me back to a position with zero shaft lean. They end up getting this lead wrist in a very cupped position at the top. This causes the club face to open. From here, you'll hit a lot of slices and just overall produce inconsistent results. Now let's dive into just a little bit more detail on each of the wrists. Let's start with the trail wrist. Now I want to keep this as simple as possible. So what I want you to do is just rest the club on the side of your body. We're not using the club right here. Let your trail arm just hang straight down. Now from here, you'll see my palm points slightly down and slightly forwards towards the target. In order to set my right wrist correctly, I want you to make sure you don't move your arm. I just want you to take that palm and set it back on itself so it points down to the ground. So you can see I set the wrist back on itself, the palm points down to the ground. This is literally wrist set, that motion right there. Now you might hear some coaches talk about loading of the trail wrist or loading of the trail arm. This is it. Now the next thing I want you to do is exactly the same thing, but this time gripping a golf club. My palms pointing sort of towards the target, maybe slightly down to the ground. Keep my hand, imagine there's a circle there in the imaginary circle, and then just set the club back on itself so my palm points down to the ground. Look at that, that gets the club face in a little bit more of a closed position. You can see the angle created in my trail wrist right there. Now, if you are a golfer who struggles with an open club face, I promise you, you are not doing this movement. So you need to focus on how your trail arm moves. Now, the final stage is now just do this motion and then add a little bit of a swing in there and let that club naturally release on the way down, and you got yourself a golf swing with some good wrist set. On a quick side note, if you are enjoying today's video, please give it a like and the channel a subscribe. It massively helps me out and allows me to produce more videos. Let's get back to the video. Now let's talk about the lead wrist, and we have two focus points, the heel pad and the thumb. If I grip it with just my lead hand, I'm gonna feel like my heel pad pushes down on the grip as my fingers and thumb pull that club up. And you can see when I do this, it gives me some leverage. Now this leverage is crucial for generating speed. It allows us to generate speed. Setting it with the right wrist allows us to control the face and therefore shaft lean and swing plane, but the left wrist allows us to generate more leverage. So when I push down with the heel pad and pull up with the fingers and thumb, you can see how that keeps my left arm perfectly straight. Where some golfers go wrong is they pull their left arm up. When they do this, they get disconnected, no bueno. We need to feel like we push down with that heel pad, pull the fingers up. So let's now combine the two together. And as you can see when I do this, it produces beautiful wrist set. Now the left wrist flattens. How? Think of a car pulling a trailer. The right wrist is the car, the left wrist is the trailer. When the right wrist pulls back on itself, it flattens that left wrist off. So that is how we generate this beautiful wrist set position. So let's now talk about when to set the wrists. Now in this situation, you have two types of golfers. You have golfers like Danny Willett and Rory McIlroy who like to set the wrists early, get it done, and then from there they turn to the top and just naturally release the angles out on the way down. Or you have your second category of golfers who like to set the wrist later. This is your Bryson DeChambeau, your Xander Schauffele. Now the biggest difference between these two is obviously when they set their wrists. But there is a key similarity. Now this key similarity is as they get to the top of the backswing, they pull the hands down very quickly. When they do this, this creates lag, the club sets back in the trail wrist, and then from there they slow the hands down, which releases the club out. So the question should then be, which one is right for you? Well, the answer to that is its personal preference. So what I'm gonna get you to do is try two different drills. One drill is gonna help you with an early wrist set, the other one's gonna help you with a later wrist set. Give them both a go and comment down below which one your favorite one is. Now for those golfers who like to have a early wrist set, the exercise we're gonna do is a stop, check and go drill. Very simple. Set up to the golf ball, and from here you're going to do the wrist set that we just spoke about. But here's the thing, we're gonna stop just after the takeaway's finished. So the way I'm getting into this position is I'm feeling like I'm pushing down on the top part of the grip with the left hand and pulling back with the right wrist. This pulls the left wrist into a flat position, right wrist in a good position, club face in a good position. Now when you do this, you're just gonna check it, make sure it's in a good spot. Then from there, you're gonna look back at the ball, turn to the top and hit the ball from there. Great exercise just to break this movement down. So let me show you what it looks like. Step up to the ball, you're gonna do a little preset, check it, looks good, look back at the ball, and hit. Now let's go for a drill for you golfers who like to set the wrist later. Now this exercise is called a push back drill. Now it's not the golf ball version. This is with something with a little bit more weight. I have a head cover here. You can roll up a small towel, anything really that's gonna provide some resistance. Because what you're gonna do is take this head cover, place it right behind the ball. Now, for you golfers who like to stay wider in the takeaway and set the wrist later, you need two things. You need a more of a body movement to take that club back, and you need some momentum to allow the club to sort of flick back into the trail wrist. So the great thing about this is as you do this, because that head cover's there, and if I was to tell you to drag that head cover back, you're gonna see as I do this, how the hands lag in this position. Now, once they do that, once they have that lag, they would then have some torque to where you can flick the club up into the back of your trail wrist and then do your normal downswing. Here's what this one should look like. Now, one question I know that's going to be asked down in the comments section is it the same for a driver? Well, as a general rule, the longer the club, the longer it takes to set your wrist. This is due to the length of shaft and the fact that there are more forces and momentum going on here. So it just takes longer to actually set the wrist. So to answer that question, the movement is the same, it just takes a little bit longer. So that's everything you need to know about the wrist set. If you need more one-to-one help, I offer online coaching on the Skillist platform. The link is down below. And if you have enjoyed today's video, please give it a like, and I hope to see you back here soon.